A Vegeta at 24,000 power level, a Super Saiyan 3 Goku with hair so spiky it kinda hurts, to a Frieza so detailed you can even see the battle damage in its skin. These are just some of the craziest Dragon Ball figures in my collection, and today I want to see how well they recreate the world of Dragon Ball. Let's start in the Namek saga with the S.H.Figuarts Vegeta at 24,000 power level, which feels like it's been ripped straight from Toriyama's story. This entire figure is an outstanding recreation, and I'm talking about every look from his smug grin to even simple things like the armor's design. The sculpt really nails Vegeta's wide, bulky, and short build, and while some might find the armor a little too clean, it does work perfectly for his Namek Saga look when he had just gotten a fresh set. One thing the S.H.Figuarts line is known for is loading up figures with accessories. Some characters get more than others, but Vegeta here comes with a solid amount. This Vegeta gives you 3 extra faces, my favorite being the shouting expression, multiple hands, and of course the folded arms piece. Articulation here is strong too. The neck has a good range, but it does show some gaps here and there. The torso is a little restricted by the armor, but the shoulder blades are articulated so they don't ruin too much of the arm's range. I think one of the coolest features about this figure though is the scouter accessory that it comes with, which can swap between faces, and the detachable earpiece, which means you can mix and match depending on the look you want for the character, especially when it comes to posing. And since I always like recreating poses, I wanted to test out one of Vegeta's rage moments from his fight with Qui on Namek. First, I had to swap to the screaming face and pop on the scouter because you know he's about to yell about his power level going up. Then I threw on the fist, spread his legs into a deep crouch, and leaned him forward so he feels like he's just about to explode. With a couple of adjustments like curling the arms and pulling the shoulders back, I think this pose is complete and the facial expression really seals the deal here. It's such an iconic moment for Vegeta, and I think that when you get this figure posed just right, it really shows how this is one of the best looking Vegeta figures that Tamashii has put out. And I say one because coming up later in the video, we're going to be checking out another Vegeta that outperforms this one. But before we can do that, we naturally have to pair this Vegeta with his legendary rival, Goku, in his Saiyan Saga look. Which brings us to the S.H.Figuarts Lowest Born Saiyan Goku figure. So this Goku, called Lowest Born Saiyan, goes for about 4,000 yen, which is just under $35, making it one of the cheapest ways to get a proper Saiyan Saga Goku. But the gi and colors are accurate to this moment of Goku's story. The faces here are a little more animated compared to other releases, which gives it a nice personality boost, and I like how the details and the muscles and clothing bring it all to life. This is actually the first time this style of Goku has been made widely available since the pricey San Diego Comic-Con exclusive version. But of course they did have to switch things up a bit by changing up the accessories included with the figure. This time around you get 3 extra sets of hands, 3 additional faces, and an alternate hairpiece that has a windblown effect. It's a lesser offering compared to the exclusive, which had the Gohan, the Power Pole, and Nimbus Cloud for him to fly on. You could very well still get a Power Pole though, because Tamashii Nations did make a bonus kit for their Saiyan Raised on Earth version of this figure. I actually found mine a few months ago at a Midtown Comics in New York, and at the time of recording they do still have them available on their website. You just have to pick them up in store when you order. This figure is still solid even though it's on an older 2.0 body, which can feel a bit outdated. For testing, I wanted to throw Goku into one of those low, ready stances you see in the manga, so I swapped his hands to match the reference, dropped his legs into a wide crouch, and leaned him forward just enough to make it look like he's about to spring into action. It's a simple pose, but it captures that classic Goku energy really well. The 2.0 Goku body is a solid figure to start off with, especially if it's your first Goku, but there is some limited range in the torso. Luckily, we can do a mod that's going to fix that and kind of give us a new and improved figure. All you need to do is heat the torso joint with some hot water to soften the plastic, and then snip away the little blocker piece inside with a pair of hobby nippers. Once that extra plastic piece was out, the joint finally had the freedom it needed. It's a small change, but the difference in motion is night and day. Now, S.H.Figuarts has quite a few Frieza releases, and this first form Frieza comes in at about 8,000 yen, which is roughly $60, and I think this is one of the most complete packages in the line. The sculpt is dead on to his iconic first appearance, the colors are sharp, and I love the mix of matte and glossy finishes on the armor. The head sculpt might be one of the best in the whole line. I mean, just look at how this facial expression looks. And speaking of facial expressions, you do get a few more with the accessories and some extra hands. There's also the finger death ball and a 5-star Dragon Ball. It even comes with a scouter faceplate that works just like Vegeta's, so you can mix and match between the different facial expressions that the character has. The real highlight of this package though is going to be the pod, which I don't just see as another accessory, but instead like you're getting a second figure. It has a detailed exterior and interior with things like sculpted controls, and even a special base that sells the effect of it floating. Now the figure is a bit smaller in scale, so articulation was something I was concerned about when getting this figure, and I've gotta say it's way better than I expected. The torso crunch is fantastic, and the tail even has a couple of articulation points too. Even inside the pod, he still moves really well, so it never feels like he's locked into one pose. For testing, I wanted to recreate this moment from the manga where Frieza is shouting, and honestly, it was almost effortless. I wish Vegeta's armor had the same kind of engineering here. But that's just the start of Frieza's forms as an action figure. This right here is the S.H.Figuarts Full Power Frieza, which costs about 8,500 yen, or a little under $65, and I think it's one of the best designs Tamashii Nations has ever pulled off at this scale. The sculpt really captures his shredded, almost monstrous look perfectly. Muscles are bulked out, veins are sculpted into the skin, and looking closely you can see things like these scratches from his brutal fight with Goku, and even some light blue shading across the body, adding extra depth. Then for the accessories, you get some great options like 3 extra heads that have some very serious expressions to them, swappable feet for the flight poses, 4 extra sets of hands, and even his iconic Death Saucers. Tamashii Nations also included a face for the legendary Super Saiyan Goku, which we'll be checking out in just a moment. Articulation is also where this figure shines, as it has a lot of cuts for movement, and overall a super dynamic posing experience. Full Power Frieza's design is quite bulky, so I wanted to see if it could handle this dynamic battle pose seen in the manga. As I was fixing each of the joints, the pose slowly came to life, and the bulk doesn't really hold him back at all. This is truly one of Tamashii's masterpiece figures. Now of course, if you have a Full Power Frieza figure in your collection, you're going to need his rival, the legendary Super Saiyan Goku, and this is the definitive Goku from the climax of the Namek saga. The sculpt captures the damaged look perfectly, having a scuffs, scratches, and even shading in the hair to emphasize that dramatic transformation. This figure comes with 3 faces, alternate hair, 5 sets of hands, and a massive Kamehameha effect part, which is a little like putting a puzzle together. You can achieve some great looking poses with the fluid motion, and it just adds so much personality to this figure. I remember getting it in hand for the first time, and it was kind of hard to put it down. And then if you add in something like Tamashii's rock and smoke effects, it really makes this figure stand out. Looking through the manga, I found a pose I wanted to try where he's doing the split kick against Frieza, and this figure pulls it off with no problem. Now that's just the start of Goku's Super Saiyan transformations. Later on in his story, we see him go all the way to Super Saiyan 3. This Goku comes in at around 6,000 yen, or just over $40, and is one of the wildest looking figures in the entire line. At first glance, the body is just the same as 2.0 Goku's mold, but with minor tweaks like a deeper neck cut and some shading on the gi. But I think what makes this figure crazy is the hair. It's huge, it's shiny, it's sharp, so sharp in fact that it actually hurts if you're not careful handling it, and that's what makes it feel less like a toy and more like a collector's item. Then we have some really cool accessories, like 3 faces with that very odd and kind of disturbing eyebrowless look to the character, multiple hands, and even a Tamashii Nation stand, which you'll need because this figure is top heavy thanks to all of that hair. Speaking of the articulation though, it is the same as the lowest born Saiyan, but with the added challenge of balancing all that weight from the hair. Thanks to the stand though, you can pull off some great poses that look very energetic and full of power, and I like the overall look of it. One of the poses I tested on this figure is when Goku shows off Super Saiyan 3 to both Majin Buu and Babidi, which by the way, I wonder how long before we get a Babidi or Dabura figure in figure form. I personally think those would be great to see, but let me know which DBZ figures you'd want Tamashii Nations to make in the future. This Super Saiyan 3 pose is pretty simple and more so relies on the subtle movements like slight twists, bends, and having the right face. It looks pretty good, and it shows that you don't always have to have a crazy pose to show off how good a figure looks. Now before Goku was pushing those transformations, the Cell Saga passed the torch on to his son, Gohan. This Super Saiyan Gohan figure represents that exact moment, and it might be one of my favorite S.H.Figuarts releases yet. By this point in the story, his growth really shows, and I appreciated his journey to this defining moment in Dragon Ball Z. You get multiple faces that all feel accurate to the character, and a nice variety of hands as well, but the standout is definitely the wired soft goods cape. The cape is also removable, which unlocks even more posing range. Once again though, the articulation here is excellent, letting him hit all sorts of dynamic poses, and he's just a blast to play around with. However, I've gotta be honest, I was a bit nervous to pose this figure at times. Apparently the first release of this figure has an issue where the leg joint could break, and I didn't know about it until after I bought the figure. Having one of those real life moments when you buy a product for the first time and then start watching a bunch of reviews about it afterward, only to hear every soul crushing thing that could go wrong with it after you bought the item. Now one of my favorite Gohan moments is when he achieves Super Saiyan 2 power, particularly this shot of him unleashing that newfound ability, and I want to give it a shot. Doing this pose wasn't too difficult, I was able to nail it in the end, and luckily didn't have it break on me or in any of the other poses that I tried, which was a great relief. You can't have a Gohan figure though without his mentor, so now we're checking out the S.H.Figuarts Piccolo, the proud Namekian. This figure feels like the definitive Dragon Ball Z version of the character. The sculpt and silhouette are spot on, from the tall, imposing frame frame to the somewhat muted but accurate colors. The cape is also plastic, which looks good, but it isn't as flexible as soft goods like we saw with Gohan. It's a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. The figure still manages to look majestic though, no matter how you pose this thing, and the accessories include a variety of things from multiple facial expressions, different types of hands, folded arms, and even this cut-off arm accessory that looks brutal in its detail. And I think that this piece is one of the most unique accessories I've seen from Tamashii, as it makes recreating battle damage scenes super fun. It also has a back piece when the cape isn't being used, and two types of connectors for a Tamashii stand when you are using the cape. These are so you can change how high the cape is when blowing, and even do a floating pose where his legs are crossed. Now for testing, I went with one of Piccolo's most iconic moves, the special beam cannon. First up was the charging with his fingers pressed to his forehead, and then I attempted to do the firing pose. The figure handles both of these beautifully, the knees bend naturally, the torso crunch lets him lean into the motion, and the shoulder swings forward enough to really sell this move. This Piccolo is one of the best versions of the character we've gotten in figure form, but I'm definitely going to need to get a soft goods cape to upgrade it and take it to the next level. Now a lot of those figures were all from the Z era lineup, but what about the brand new Daima figures? Here we have both the adult Goku and adult Vegeta, which come in at about 4,000 yen or around $28 to $35, depending on where you can get it. Starting with the Goku, the big standout here is just everything about it. This is an all new body with all new engineering, and it looks very clean. Tamashii used this soft rubberized plastic for the gi, which is genius. And as you're testing this thing out, you'll see that it opens up the articulation so much more than, say, the 2.0 body. All of the poses you can do with this thing look fluid, and the range feels way more natural. As you get more and more familiar with the figure, you'll see just how good it is. The figure also includes a bunch of accessories, including this alternate skirt piece for the gi, and the expressions on each of these faces really sell that new Daima style. Then we've got the Saiyan Prince Vegeta, and what's cool is how different he feels compared to his Z era figures. The articulation here is plenty to hit all the poses you'd want, just as fun as Goku, and even better than the 24,000 power level figure. This Vegeta's accessory loadout is great too, having all the things you'd need, from alternate hairs, several faces, and a bunch of hands, and even a folded arm piece too, because what's a Vegeta figure without folded arms? On their own, I think that these are some solid figures, but together, they're even better, which is why I wanted to test the two by recreating something from their sparring in the anime. What was cool here was how natural they both felt in motion. Vegeta's slimmer body made it very easy to get him into that striking pose without the joints looking awkward, and Goku's new gi design actually let him twist and raise his arms to block in a way that looked fluid and not stiff. With the stands holding them up, the whole setup has the energy I was hoping to match from the shot, and it really showed off how far Tamashii has pushed these bodies. Now, I know that these figures may not be as flashy or as iconic as these Z figures that we checked out earlier, but I think for the price that you're getting them for and the amount of articulation that they offer, they're definitely something that's worth considering for the collection. After testing everything from Namek Saga figures to Daima designs, I think it's safe to say that these aren't just figures, but instead feel a lot like a new way to experience Dragon Ball's story. Some nail the nostalgia, some push the engineering forward, and together they show why S.H.Figuarts is one of the best lines out there to collect.